Good morning, everybody. How are you today? Good, I'm glad to hear that. I'm also doing well. So, today we are going to review our phrasal verbs. We have been learning what they are and using them in different sentences. So, who can explain what a phrasal verb is? Yeah, good. A phrasal verb is the verb and the preposition, or the adverb, right? Or both in some cases. So, what makes phrasal verbs difficult in your opinion? Yeah, sometimes the meaning isn't obvious, right? For example, the phrasal verb get over. It can mean to get over a difficult situation, to move past a difficult situation. So sometimes the meanings of phrasal verbs aren't very obvious. So sometimes students will say that's the hardest part of learning English. So today we're going to review them to make sure that they're a little more clear for us. So we're going to start with one of our favorite games that we've played before, Taboo. So I think you remember the rules, but here we have a bag of 40 common phrasal verbs. What you'll do is you'll pick out a phrasal verb and you can either explain it to the class or act it out, whatever makes sense to you the most, whatever you think will help your students guess the correct answer. So we have 40 of the most common phrasal verbs. So for example, if you pull out the phrasal verb bring up, you can explain it's what parents do as their children grow up. Or if you pull out the phrasal verb look after, you could act out looking after a baby, an animal, whatever you want, okay? If you pick out a phrasal verb that you don't know, that's okay. Just put it aside and pick a new one. And then at the end of the game, we'll take the list of the ones we don't know and we will review them, okay? So let's get started. All right, great job reviewing the phrasal verbs. I think they're a little more clear for you. Now that you know in general what they are, we're going to practice putting them into sentences. So we need to get into 4 different groups, all right? So divide yourself into 4 groups. So it should be about 4 people, 4 or 5 people per group. All right, so each group is going to be given 10 phrasal verbs of the ones that we just, excuse me, of the phrasal verbs that we just reviewed. All right, so you will all have 10, and your job now, your task, is to create 10 sentences so 1 sentence for each of the phrasal verbs that you have been giving, so in total 10 sentences. So you will create the sentence, and where the phrasal verb should be placed, you will leave it blank. So do you understand what I mean by blank? When you are given a test and do you remember fill in the blank? Yeah, so you all have seen that before. It's just 2 lines where you need to put the phrasal verb correctly, okay? So you are going to create 10 sentences with your team, 1 sentence for each of the phrasal verbs, leaving the blank space where the phrasal verb should be. You might want to take another piece of paper and write down which phrasal verb is where so you don't get confused later on. So what you're going to do after you make these 10 sentences is that we are going to pass these around and these papers around, and it'll almost be like a small quiz. But don't let that scare you, it's just for practice. But the other groups will take your 10 sentences and try to fill in the correct phrasal verbs in the blanks to see if they have learned them correctly, have learned them well enough. So for the phrasal verbs, if you have to change the tense of the verb, make sure to put that in brackets, so at the end of the sentence. So for example, if you were given the phrasal verb give up, you could say, the camp was too difficult, I blank blank, after the first day. So the phrasal verb is give up, but it's not in present simple, it's now in past simple. So put in brackets at the end that it has to be past simple. So the camp was too difficult, I gave up after the first Thursday. Understand? And try not to make it too general. Do you understand what I mean? So try and give clues in the sentences to help your classmates guess what the correct phrasal verb could be. So, for example, if you are given the phrasal verb look after, don't say something like, I look after my cat. I blank blank my cat. That could be so many things, right? Instead, try to say something like, my friend asked me to look after their cat while they were away on holiday. So that gives a few more clues about what the possible phrasal verb could be. All right, so now what you need to do in your groups is write the 10 sentences, leaving blank where the phrasal verb should be, and then you will pass around and you will fill out the 3 other sheets of the 10 sentences with the phrasal verbs, okay? Make sure not to write on the sheet of paper so that you don't give away any clues, okay? All right, so if you need any help, please let me know. When you have finished writing your 10 questions, I will come and check to make sure that everything is clear so we don't confuse each other, okay? Just to double check any grammar or any possible issues you might encounter. All right, so please let me know if you have any problems. You now have 10 minutes to write your questions.